First up, accusations of racism in Brookline, which have resulted in a standoff between two African-American police officers and the town. The officers are refusing to return to work until an independent investigation is completed, saying they feel unsafe. The pair says they've made multiple complaints about racially charged incidents with and remarks made by fellow officers. Joining me to tell their stories are Brookline police officers Estefanos Zerai-Miskin. Did I get that close?
Right.
Told me to call him Officer Z, and Officer Prentice Pilot. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. We also invited Police Chief Daniel O'Leary. He did agree to join us, but due to subsequent miscommunication, primarily on my end, he will not be joining us. We did get a statement from the chair of the Board of Selectmen, which I'll get into in just a couple of seconds. Let me start with you, Officer Z, if I can. What was the first example of what you say was racial harassment directed at you by a fellow cop in Brookline?
Well, this started for me in summer of 2014. I was assigned to an unmarked cruiser, anti-crime unit they call it, and I came to a stop at a red light, and I saw my lieutenant, he was walking by on the crosswalk, and I rolled the window down. I said, "Hey, Lieutenant, how are you?" To which he looked over at me, he said, "What the f***, who would put a black man behind one of these?" And at that time, I had no reaction. I was just shocked and tried to understand what was going on, but that was the first incident.
What'd you do after it happened?
I kept it bottled in for a while. I wrote down what happened because it just seemed very odd coming from a supervisor, and I tried to move past it.
Did you ever report it to anybody?
Not until later that year.
But you did, and then to whom?
Chief O'Leary in December of 2014.
What happened?
Me, Officer Prentice, and another minority officer went up to the chief, and we complained about all our incidents of racial discrimination within the department.
Meaning this was not the only one?
No.
And what did the chief do?
The chief talked to his command staff and told him to pass it down the chain of command that the department won't tolerate racial discrimination. But what happened was one of the sergeants in the process breached my confidentiality and outed me to all the patrol officers. So within days, they knew that I was the complainant.
And was there ever a finding in these things or no?
No.
Last December, you had another incident that's been pretty high profile. It's been in the Globe in the last few days. Tell us what happened to you, officer.
Sure. I pulled up to a sergeant. I was working in a marked cruiser in uniform. I pulled up to a sergeant who was doing a detail and to say hello. And he said, "Why don't you pull the car over there, get up on the sidewalk, do some nigger jumping jacks for me, and I'll put in a good word for you."
And what'd you do after that?
That was on a Friday. The following Monday, I went to the chief, reported it to him.
Same Chief O'Leary?
Same Chief O'Leary, right. And just like Officer Z said, we had been to him a year earlier, and we still to this day I've never been spoken to. I don't even know who the human...
Well, except in your case, this most recent December incident,
Yeah.
from what I understand, they did do an investigation. They did have a finding, whether you like it or not, in which they determined your charge was, the finding was inconclusive.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes, but that was not the Human Resources Department. As according to their policy, their anti-discrimination policy, they're supposed to forward these matters to them and have them do an investigation. So they're doing that now because we've come public with this, I believe. We've come public with this. But last year, nothing. We never heard word.
Did you both go before something called the Diversity Something Commission in Brookline? What happened there, officer?
So that was the first place we went public to try and seek redress around these issues. And we spoke to them. There was a select person who was there, selectman, his name is Bernard Green, who's also a police commissioner. The selectmen in the town of Brookline are also police commissioners. He heard our story. The chairman of the diversity committee suggested right then and there that he talk to us and find out more of the story.
And did that happen?
He did, no, it did not.
We have a statement from the chair of the Brookline Commission. It's called for Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Relations. We'll put it up for you. The Board of Selectmen, as an institution of town government, has allowed a culture of institutional racism to exist through its past hiring practices. You said a minute ago, Officer Z, this was not the only situation, the one you described last. I mean, when you say multiple, there have been 3 or 4 times you've been the victims of alleged racial harassment. How many times are we talking about here?
Plenty of times, countless times. Another example would be I was walking through a parking lot when an officer was in a vehicle, and he said, "I almost ran you over. I can't see you in the dark unless your eyes are open." And he just so happened to make that comment. It was a white officer when there was another black officer sitting in the passenger seat.
And did you report that?
I did.
Have virtually all the incidents that you alleged happened, were directed at both of you, been reported to either the chief or somebody else in authority at the Brookline Police Department?
To the chief, yes.
I want to read, again, we invited the chief. He said yes, and then there was a foul-up primarily on my end about this. But the chair of the Board of Selectmen did send us a statement. I want to read it to you. Chief O'Leary would have described in great detail the steps he has taken to address the reports of racially charged conduct made by these officers, along with the extensive work his department has undertaken in the past to promote bias-free policing in Brookline. Chief O'Leary encourages these officers to work collaboratively with him with mediation if necessary to address the issues they may have raised and return them to work. An independent investigation of the officers' reports is underway, and therefore I'm unable to provide further comment. In the interim, we continue to be hopeful these officers will fully cooperate with the investigations that are underway and return to their work as Brookline police officers. Neither of you have any intention to return pending this investigation. Is that correct?
No.
Are you getting paid?
They just changed me to sick time, but I went a couple of weeks where I wasn't getting paid.
And you're getting paid now as a sick leave?
Yes.
And how about you, Officer Pond?
I believe they have me on sick leave.
They have you on sick leave as well. Let's address a couple of issues that the chair of the Board of Selectmen has raised. They have started an independent investigation. Is that not correct?
Yes, they have.
Okay, so, and they say, while it's happening, return to work. Why would you not return to work if you're essentially getting what you want, an independent look at what your charges are? Why not return to work?
I think you're assuming that the investigation is independent. You know, it's kind of like, you know, when people find impropriety within a police department, they always say, well, does the police department investigate its own impropriety? I think not. I think most people see the problem with that. In fact, today we spoke for the first time with this independent investigator, and we basically asked him, well, who hired you? Who'd you talk to? Who called you up? Town administrators, you know, the human resources directors.
Would you expect them not to talk to them, though? I mean, if it turns out there are two sides of the story, I assume you both agree.
Yes.
It's their side and yours, and their obligation is to do that, is it not?
Yes, it is.
Do you share Officer Pilot's concern about the independence of this thing?
I do, and I give you a prime example why I think this investigation is compromised already. And my own police union, I had a meeting with them just recently, a few days ago, and the union president told me that one of the selectmen, Nancy Daly, reached out to him before one of our meetings and at town hall when we were protesting, and Nancy Daly asked the union if they would come up there and make a statement saying that they're shocked by these allegations and they're blindsided by our allegations of the racial harassment within the department. So I feel like the investigation has been compromised from the beginning.
Is your union supporting you, the two of you? Silence. Does that mean they're not? What's the answer to the question?
I think they have to have a neutral position because some of the officers that we complain about are part of the union.
Part of the union as well. You know, one of the things that's mentioned in this note, and I understand your concerns about the investigation, is they're offering mediation. And my understanding, at least from news reports I've read, they are willing to have a mutually chosen mediator. So if you think this man or woman would not be independent, you can say no until you find one you think is independent. Mm-hmm. You've rejected mediation as well, though. Is that not true?
Well, we're not.
Let me start with Officer Z if I can. Just why? If I'm right.
I don't think that's true. Well, first, what we're trying to do is secure our safety with going back to work. I'm burning up my own sick time for the year within the first couple of weeks of this year, of January. So, you know, I just want to give you a prime example. What I mean by that is if there's a domestic violence complaint issue to us, we're not going to go to the complainant and say, you need to go back in that house while we investigate this and we'll get back to you. No, we're going to take them to court. They're going to get a protection order and they'll go back once.
Are you saying you wouldn't feel safe until what has to happen for you to feel safe enough to comply with the request to return to work?
I think them acknowledging why we feel, you know, that we don't feel safe there is a start, and they don't even acknowledge that.
You're nodding your head, agree.
Oh, absolutely.
But quickly, before you go, I just don't understand again, if you could mutually choose a mediator, regardless of your return to work, would you or would you not agree to mediation of your concerns? Officer Z, first with you?
I would definitely consider that.
And how about you?
Yeah, sure.
Gentlemen, thank you. And again, we'll hear from the chief, I think, next week, and we hope to talk to you again. Officer Z, thanks so much. Officer Pilot,
thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.